The Linked Data Competency Index is it's a map of concepts and skills that are related to practices and technologies of linked data. And it is compiled for the benefit of people who want to learn about linked data technology or people who want to teach about linked data technology in the classroom. And this was created as part of a project, LD4PE, Linked Data for Professional Education, that was funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS. Okay, so a competency index has a very simple structure. This is a set of competencies about a particular theme, linked data, and they're organized at the top level by topic and topic cluster. And the competency itself is a short sentence, a short description about knowledge or skills that can be learned related to linked data. And it's about the length of a tweet. So it's a very short description. And then you have something called a benchmark, which it describes an action that demonstrates accomplishment in a given competency. So it's easier to simply illustrate this. So here's an example from the competency index. The topic is querying RDF data, and the competency is understands that a Sparkle query matches an RDF graph against a pattern of triples with fixed and variable values. And another competency is understands the basic syntax of a Sparkle query. And so these are, this assumes that in other parts of the competency index, we start at a higher level. We describe what RDF is. We describe what Sparkle is. We try to make sure that all of the acronyms are explained. But this articulates something that you would learn. And then how would you demonstrate your knowledge of that in a homework assignment or in a quiz or an exam? So you would use angle brackets for delimiting URIs. You would use question marks for indicating variables. You would use prefix for indicating base URIs. So that's something from the middle of the competency index. And let's go back. Let's take a look at the overall picture. So the topic is querying RDF data, and in context, you see that there are a number of topic clusters, fundamentals of resource description framework that really starts with the basics of what RDF is about, fundamentals of linked data, and then RDF vocabularies and application profiles, creating and transforming RDF data. And so querying RDF data is in the cluster about interacting with RDF data. And so in total, there are 6 topic clusters, 30 topics, and 95 competencies. So if you'll notice, going back to the competencies, you'll see that the competencies, this first competency starts with understands that a Sparkle query matches an RDF graph. The second one says knows the basic syntax. And the benchmark, they tend to start with verbs like uses angle brackets, uses question marks. So you'll see that the basic distinction between a competency and a benchmark is that competencies are more about what you understand, what you know, what you recognize, what you're able to differentiate, that sort of thing. And benchmarks are more about Doing, so the sorts of things that you would find on exam questions or homework assignments. So you're showing how you use something, you express something, you demonstrate something, you distill some information, you convert some data, that sort of thing. Okay. So we also, when we wrote the competency index, we really tried to make it readable. And so we did not put in a lot of acronyms without explaining what they mean. For example, one competency says knows web ontology language, or OWL. And then we give the year, 2004. So you already have some context. We do not assume that the reader of the competency index knows what OWL is. And then we explain what it is. It's an RDF vocabulary of properties and classes that extends support for expressive data modeling and automated inferencing, reasoning. And then another example, the word ontology is ambiguous. It means different things to different people. So we say that. We say the competency is, knows that the word ontology is ambiguous, referring to any RDF vocabulary, but more typically a set of all classes and properties designed to support inferencing in a specific domain. So we really try to spell out acronyms, provide enough context to give the non-expert reader a rough idea what they mean. So you should be able to, if you have some knowledge of RDF, you should be able to pick up the competency index and read it through and roughly understand what it's about. At least have a sense of what the topics are. So we tried this is work in progress. So we continue to edit the competency index, and we try to cover enough topics to convey a map of the domain, linked data, and we try to cover the topics in enough detail for domain competency. Other competency indexes make other design choices, for example, to support exams or to support certification. So what the competency index does not cover is it does not cover levels of difficulty, because what is basic for a library scientist may be difficult for a computer scientist, and vice versa. So we do not try to rank the competencies by level of difficulty. We also do not provide any particular ranking or ordering. This is not a curriculum. Different instructors or different learners might want to cover the topics in a different order for different reasons. You might think of the competencies as building blocks that can be assembled into different courses or curricula. So, what is a competency index used for? Well, it describes what a learner can learn. So if you're interested in learning about linked data, you can sit down and you can look through the competency index. It's currently about 8 pages long if you print it out. So it's not too long. And we are continuing to add, fill in some of the gaps, add some topics, because this linked data, of course, is an area where there is a lot of development of new techniques, new technologies. For example, the shape expressions language, SHEX, and Shackle for validating RDF data. Those are not yet covered in the competency index, but They will be. So the competency index describes skills that demonstrate that understanding. So if you are looking for, if you're an instructor designing a course, you can get ideas for homework assignments, for quiz questions, for exams. It can also provide a basis for other types of things, like job descriptions, people working in the field of linked data, for describing a course by writing a syllabus, for describing a university degree program, for describing, at the other extreme, a micro-credential, or a digital badge. So some sort of very targeted indicator of a skill or competency that you have learned and demonstrated. And it can also be used, very importantly, to tag descriptions of learning resources. So this is something that has been done in the context of the LD4PE project, the IMLS-funded project. That so it has gone out onto the web and found YouTube videos and tutorial materials and articles, PDFs, various types of material. It has described 620 of these resources, and it has tagged them according to the competencies that they address. For example, here is a YouTube video tagged using the competency index, and you can go to the web and watch the video of a lecture by Professor Asuncion Gomez Perez. Okay, we have put the competency index itself on a small documentation website at this address. And there is a parallel competency index website, the exact same website, with the content in Chinese. And there's talk of having competency indexes in other languages as well. But the Chinese community has been particularly active in this area. There have been some workshops held in Wuhan, China, about the competency index, and the entire miniature documentation website is available in Chinese. So one advantage of this is a website that is maintained on GitHub, and one advantage of maintaining the website on GitHub is that it has excellent support for that allows users to propose changes or additions to the website. So there's this button in the upper right-hand corner that says Edit on GitHub. It's a little bit like a wiki, except the changes are not made directly in the competency index, but they are proposed as proposals to the editorial board. So you can go in there like a wiki, and you can make some changes or edit something, and that will be submitted to the editorial board as a proposal. It's a very nice system that between a wiki where anybody can edit anything, which we don't want to have because we want there to be a certain stability in the competency index. And we also want to have a certain editorial control for consistency of style and that sort of thing. Okay, so who can use the competency index? Well, students can use it to help choose courses that cover what you want to learn. So you can use it to get a sense of what the linked data field is about and what types of topics are covered, and then you can compare that to the courses that you might want to take. Instructors can use it to help design a course, design a syllabus, homework assignments, quizzes, exams. Employers can use it to write a job description. And self-learners can use it to explore technologies and methods related to linked data. So not just through the competency index itself, but if it has been used to tag information resources, like in the LD4PE projects, it will help you find YouTube videos and other types of materials that will teach you what you want to learn. So, seen in context, one might think of it this way, that really since the 19th century, we've had the industrial classroom model. So a lecturer stands at the front of the room and gives a lecture. We call that sage on the stage. A sage is a wise person. And then the students listen, they take notes, they memorize things, and then they come back and take an exam and show that they have learned the lessons from the lectures. But there's also increasingly now a trend of tailoring learning and education to individual needs. So the notion of the inverted classroom. So students watch lectures online before they come to class. Or they pursue customized learning objectives. And instructors then give individualized help. So instead of sage on the stage, it's more guide on the side. And learners learn at their own pace in the context of lifelong learning, because everything is constantly changing. New technologies are coming along constantly. So really in today's world, we need to get used to the idea that we're going to be learning new things throughout our entire lives. And then achievement is not measured by an exam that is the same for everybody, measured by a grade, but it's measured in terms of competencies acquired. So this notion of having things like the digital badges and these micro certificates that show that you have learned something very specific, and then you can list those on a resume. You can say that as skills that you have, and that makes it easier for a potential employer to understand what you have actually learned. So it's, I think, a bit of a shift in paradigm for education and learning today. So the Linked Data Competency Index is work in progress. This is not complete because the technology itself continues to evolve, and so we have a small editorial board that is interested in continuing to update this competency index. So you can follow us on GitHub. You can propose changes to the competency index, or additions, or propose new areas where competencies are needed. We recognize a few of those already. For example, RDF validation, SHEX, and Shackle, new technologies. And there could be more about SCOS concept schemes, that sort of thing. And there could be more about specifics of linked data applications. That's an area where we haven't gone very deeply. It's also an area that changes very quickly. So that is my that's my presentation for today. Please feel free to contact me. I'll put my email address into the chat channel here.